Welcome to Real Estate Talk, where we share everything about real estate and home life. Hey, thanks for tuning in to this week's show, and be sure to rate and subscribe to hear the latest episode. Hey, welcome everyone to another episode of Real Estate Talk, where every week we bring you a new real estate topic. We're the podcast where we're just an open book about everything real estate and home life. So I want you to make sure that you subscribe and you join our Facebook and Instagram page. On Facebook, we are called Real Estate Talk, and on Instagram, we are Real Estate Talk _podcast. So join those groups and keep up with all the latest and the greatest. So today we have a great guest with us. We have Lisa Andrews, and she is with Golden Dog Title and Trust. And we're going to get into the details today of what's required to get your property from a contract to a closing table, because all kinds of things happen in between. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about Lisa. Lisa, I've known her for probably about 4 or 5 years now. She's awesome, and she's just an incredible resource for a realtor or for anyone out there who really needs some information about title insurance. So Lisa has 20 years of title insurance industry background, and she's also got a background with mortgage and banking. She's a licensed title agent, and now she's the director of sales at Golden Dog Title and Trust. She strives and she exceeds, I must add, to give customers an exceptional level of professional service, and she really does give you some great service there. So, I wanted to tell y'all that in 2016 and 2018, she received a really awesome honor. She received the Northeast Florida Association of Realtors Affiliate of the Year. She's got a huge list of accomplishments, awards, and honors. And recently in 2018, she chaired the Northeast Florida Association of Realtors Community Affairs Task Force. And on a personal side, she says that she is obsessed with traveling with her friends and family. And so we're going to ask her something about that real soon. So let me first say, welcome, Lisa. We've got Lisa Andrews in the house.
Thank you, Zelda. It's great to be here. I appreciate it.
Well, we're appreciating the time that you're giving us today to talk about all things title insurance related. But before I do that, one of the things, I've got a Facebook group for the lifestyles of the Generation X and baby boomers. It's a closed group. You'll have to join our group. And one of the things I've been asking everybody is, what's on your bucket list? And since you like to travel, what's on your bucket list?
Australia.
Okay. Do you dive?
I don't dive.
Okay.
No, but I do have a distant family member who lives there. And so I think it'd be easy to get around once I'm there. And I'm Facebook friends with her, and I'm ready to go to Australia.
Okay, very good. Australia it is, minus South Africa.
I'd love to go on a safari.
I want to see some elephants.
If I was like kangaroos.
Kangaroos. Well, you'll see some kangaroos. That's right. Oh, that is awesome. So we hope to hit those bucket lists soon. So I'm getting of that age. So time for me to hit the roads. But how did someone like you're from the Midwest, end up in a place like Jacksonville, Florida?
Well, I got into title insurance kind of haphazardly, actually. I was in mortgage. I was in banking, then mortgage. Then I was an underwriter, and then I had 2 kids.
Okay.
My husband and I started a business when my daughter was about 7 months old. My son was 2. And so I did that for a little while, but I had stopped doing my lending, my mortgage lending. But the company that I had worked for, I did a lot of their closings. When I was first pregnant with my son, I would only work part-time. I did stuff for them, my title company, a lot. And when I decided to go back to work once my kids were in school, that was the first place I went, was the title company, just looking for a job, and they hired me on the spot. So I've been in title ever since then. And how I moved to Florida was I was with a company that was national, and they asked me to come down to Florida to run the state. I was the operations manager for the state for a national title company over in Clearwater.
Okay, in Clearwater. Mm-hmm. Okay, well that's different.
Yep.
That's the beachy place.
It is. Yes.
Okay, and then you ended up here. So
Right.
That's awesome, and we're glad you are. How long have you been here?
I've been here since 2005 in Jacksonville.
Okay. Yeah. Very good. So for our listeners who aren't really certain what a title company does, because I know that when I get a new seller and I go, okay, here's the title company, they're like a deer with the lights on. They are like, what's a title company? So tell us, what role does the title company play in a real estate transaction?
Our role is to guide you through the closing process and get you into the closing table and into your new home. So we are going to be the people that you come to when you're going to go to close on a property, on a house or a home or land or whatever you're doing. We actually do the background, so we were going to look into a search into the property to see if there's any other liens out there, to see if there's any money owed, mortgages, anything like that, so that we can get you entitled with a title policy.
Okay, so there you go. So we're going to come down at the very end when you're ready to close on your house. This is the office that you go to sign all your millions of documents that the lender wants you to sign. So there's so many title companies out there, just like there's a million realtors out there. So how does one go about selecting a title company? Are there certain questions that you should ask? I mean, this is, it's like Golden Dog Title isn't everywhere. So we could be in Nebraska, we could be in Kalamazoo, who knows where. What are the questions you should be asking to find the right title company?
I mean, it's funny that you ask, because most people really don't know what a title company is. And even if you know that's where we're going to go to close and they're going to do the paperwork for you, they don't do research on it, because people don't buy a house every couple of years, or that's just not something normal. So they're going to try to get their realtor usually refers a few title companies. And in the state of Florida, title insurance is promulgated, so it doesn't really matter where you go, the pricing is about the same. So the only thing that can really be different is going to be your closing fee and maybe some of your endorsements or something like that, but the title insurance itself is the same price.
Okay, so pricing isn't the question to ask. So I'm on the phone, I'm a realtor or I'm whatever, and I'm like, okay, ABC title company, I'm looking for a title company, and why should I hire you?
Right. Do you have, how many licensed title agents do you have? Do you have any attorneys there in case they have some type of legal question that they may need to have answered, or help with a post-occupancy agreement or something like that? How easy are they to work with? Because you really need a relationship with people. Just like in real estate, you want to work with someone that you're comfortable with, that you can trust to do the best job for you. So you're really going to probably go by a referral, and you can go and look and see how long people have been in business. We have a website. I think lots of them have the websites also, but you really want to do the relationship end of it. So you're going to want to have a referral probably from your real estate agent.
And that's probably the best thing, is to ask your real estate agent, who do they recommend?
Yeah.
And they're, from my experience, it is the realtor is really picking it.
From my experience as well, but really it is something that seller, in this part of the state, the seller gets to pick.
Yeah.
It's different in different parts of the state and in different states, but it is up to the buyer or seller to pick. So it is good for them to do some due diligence if they would like, or if they have a family member or friend, that's always good to get a referral. I feel like just about anything you do this day and age, you want to be referred by somebody that is knowledgeable about the industry, right?
Yeah. I have one guy, he's an investor, and he always wants to use this specific attorney's group. They know him, it's like I don't have to keep getting the same documents from him, and he wants me to always use that company. So that's fine. We'll use
especially
that.
if it's an LLC, they've already got all those documents ready and prepared, and so they can just go to the next property and go.
Yeah. And then it is the relationship. I know that once I established a relationship with you and you switched companies, it was a no-brainer for me. It was like, no, because I know that you're going to answer the phone. I know if there's a problem, you're on it. And that's important to know, that you've got an agent, a licensed agent, that if there's a problem, they're on top of it. It's like, because it happens.
It does happen, and we try to, it's behind the scenes. The realtors and the lender and the title agents, we all try to keep it behind the scenes, because you don't want to upset buyers and sellers, because it's a very emotional time for them.
That's something interesting. I'm glad you brought that up, because I've had people think, what do y'all do? Y'all don't do anything. And I don't mean you as in the title company, but in general, they're thinking, what did the realtor really do? What did the title company really do? They don't see the smooth transaction, or they don't see the things, like you said, that's happening in the back end. And that's the way it's supposed to be. If it looks really smooth and easy, that means we did our jobs right.
Exactly. That's exactly right.
So they don't see all the mess that could be going on behind the scenes. So, yeah. So tell us, what exactly is title insurance, and why do we need it?
All right. So first of all, I'm going to talk about what is title.
Okay.
Because title insurance is insurance for the title.
Okay.
And title is the foundation of real estate ownership that refers to the legal right to own, sell, possess, use, and dispose of the property.
So my house is in my name. I have the title.
Yes, so that
Okay.
it's the title is in your name. So when you purchased your house from the seller, the deed was what transferred it, and that transfers you, and that was the title that transferred over.
Okay.
So title insurance insures that title. So it is going to make sure that there are not any other encumbrances on the property. There's not a past, what do I want to say? There's no loans on it. There are not any judgments against a prior owner, that everyone's got, that you have the right to the property on your own. There wasn't an error when the deed was transferred, or when the probate or something was done, something was missed. Your title insurance covers you from the day you purchase that property backwards. So, and it's good for you, pay for it once, and it's good until you sell the property.
And then the next person buys
the next
their
person
own.
buys, right.
Because you could have encumbered on, you could have received some sort of a lien on it. It's not from the person who you bought it from, but maybe you have a lien. Maybe you did a roof and you didn't pay your roofer off, and now he's got a lien on you, or who knows, maybe you owe Uncle Sam and he's got a lien on you, whatever. So they don't transfer. You get a new one every time you sell that property.
Exactly.
Okay.
And as far as the lender's policy, the lender requires that every time, if you're getting a loan and you're purchasing a house, you have to have a title insurance property, or top of that policy. You have to have a title insurance policy.
I can't imagine you wouldn't want one.
Right. So if the lender wants one, that makes you.
What happens if you don't get it? You know, you got it. Somebody can come after you, the new buyer.
Exactly. Then it's all on you. And in the state of Florida, title insurance, you get a when you're doing a purchase money mortgage, the title insurance company or real estate attorney cannot charge full price for the lender's policy if they're getting an owner's policy at the same time. So when you're purchasing a house, you get a simultaneous issue rate on your lender's policy. Mm-hmm. So it's always less. So if you don't get an owner's policy, you're going to pay full price for your lender's policy
Oh, wow.
at the closing table. Right.
So they're going to get you one way or another.
Exactly.
And don't they all?
And then you have no protection.
That's true. That's true. So who typically pays for this title insurance?
So typically in this part of the state, the seller pays. Mm-hmm. In different parts of the state and the country, it can be the buyer. It's just kind of how the
So it's a
contract
negotiable?
reads. It's always negotiable.
Okay.
Yes.
Because I always see it on our contracts that we use. It's usually the seller. But of course, if the buyer says, "Well, I would prefer to use mine," hey, I'm not going to tell them no.
Right. It's just customary in this part of the state, but definitely it's a negotiable item on your
Is
contract.
it customary for buyers in other states?
Yes.
Okay, it's
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
So it just depends on where you are.
Right. So when the CFPB came around and changed all of our forms and all of that, the reason that we have the CD where the title insurance is different on the CD compared to the Alta is because the lender has to disclose worst case scenario, which means that they're not getting an owner's policy at the same time. So they always have to disclose on their original LE, their loan estimate, what the cost would be to the buyer if they did not get an owner's policy at the same time, if they didn't get the SIMO.
Are there other policies besides these two that we're talking about?
So there's a lender's policy and there's an owner's policy, but then the lender may have endorsements to the policy to add on to that they would require.
Okay.
Or like for a survey or something like that.
Okay, sure. So I know that some people don't want a survey. Let's talk about that for a minute. And they'll show me these freaking old surveys, and I'm like, well, did you add a fence? Well, yeah. Well, then that survey's no good anymore. Or what if they didn't make any changes? They've had this property for 30 years, and it's still the exact same property. They haven't added a fence. They haven't taken away anything. Do they need a survey?
So this is just my opinion.
Okay.
I'm going to tell you that.
Let's go for it.
They could probably use that. If it's the lot and block legal description, we may still be able to use that survey. But you have to think that, did all of your neighbors around you, have they done anything the last 30 years?
Very good.
So if they put a fence up and it's over on your property line, you would never know. I personally would always get a new survey because it's going to be certified in my name. So if anything ever comes back, if there was a wrong marking or there was a fence over on my line, if it's in my name, my survey protects me.
I can tell you, I know a story of where that actually did happen, and the neighbor disputed the seller and said, your fence, whoever's fence it was, is over on my property 2 feet, and it ended up a big lawsuit, and it ended up that they were not over 2 feet. In fact, they were right on the property line, but on the front of the house, it was over 2 inches, not to the seller's disadvantage, but to the people who were doing the suing. It was like, oh my God, well, it's a good thing you got a new survey.
Exactly.
Because they had the old survey, and the old survey wasn't any good. So they said, okay, we're going to go by a new survey. So everybody agreed they would go with the new survey, and the new survey said, hey, you know what?
Exactly. And quite frankly, that is probably in the top 5. It's not going to be number 1 of title claims or survey issues.
Really?
Yep.
What are some of the top ones?
Well,
Besides the
I'm going to
survey?
give you 20 important reasons why you need to owner's title insurance policy.
Okay.
So there's forgery, fraud in the execution of documents, undue influence of a grantor of a deed. So maybe they weren't ready to sell the property, or they may be incapacitated or something like that. False impersonation by someone purporting to be the owner of the property.
Wow. Have you seen that?
Yes.
Oh, gosh.
Well, and it's funny that they had this. What didn't happen in my office, but there were twins. And the closer got a really funny feeling for some reason that they'd come in once when they were signing some original paperwork, and they came in to close the final deal. There was something about the woman that the closer just wasn't sure about, and she said something about, I can't remember the exact story, but she asked her, and the lady said, no, that's my twin sister. She couldn't be here today, so I was going to come in and sign for her.
Oh my gosh. And she just thought that was perfectly okay.
Right. Well, she kind of knew that it wasn't, but there could be divorce, and there could be
True.
the husband or wife have a girlfriend or boyfriend, and they're trying to sell a property or buy a property, and there's all kinds of reasons that could happen.
Let's talk for a second. I know you got a bunch more there.
Yep.
A lot of the buyers come in and they have to do their wire transfer. There's so much wire fraud now. It's scary to even transfer that money. But yet the title companies don't want you to come in with a cashier's check or whatever. I mean, talk to us a little bit about wire fraud, because that scares the bejeebies out of me.
Right. So a few years back, we used to do cashier's checks all the time.
Yeah.
Probably 10 years ago. And then it got so easy for the fraudsters to duplicate the checks and put them on Micker and all of that we couldn't prove that wasn't a fraudulent check day of closing.
Gotcha.
So sometimes we will still take that, but we need to find out exactly where you purchased it, make sure there's not a stop payment on it. It's a little bit more time consuming. We need to know about 24 hours ahead of time, but we don't like to take them. The wire fraud, the fraudsters are getting into people's emails. Mm-hmm. They could pose to be me, they could pose to be you. They will get down to the email will look exactly like your email. The only thing that might be different is instead of having an I next to an L, it might be 2 L's or it might be 2 I's.
There's always
so you
something.
have to really look in the email line itself. And they've taken, it's a $4 billion a year industry, wire fraud.
Oh my gosh.
It's huge. And we have gotten to the point where it's the title companies and the real estate companies are the big target right now, and the buyers and sellers, that we actually have to have something that we're having our buyers and sellers sign that says they understand that. So, when you're getting wire instructions, we always send them over encrypted, so they're secure email. And we're never going to change wire instructions mid transaction. It's just not going to happen.
I tell my customers, I'm never going to be the one who sends you the wiring instructions. That's going to come straight from the title company. So if it comes from me, don't answer it. It's not me.
Right.
I don't want to get involved in that.
And we don't even copy our agents on it.
Yeah.
We just have it go to the buyer or seller themselves. And it's going to be the buyer. When the seller comes in, they are sitting in front of us, and they're writing down their wire instructions.
And there is human error. I can tell you probably remember we had a transaction here several months ago where the lender transferred the money, do you remember?
Yes.
To the wrong title company, and they said, we don't know where we sent it. And I had the seller and the buyer was sitting at the closing table saying, well, that's on you because you transferred the money. And it actually held up the closing because they had to trace where that money was. It messed up everything for a good...
It was 5 days.
Yeah.
Because it was on a Friday afternoon that happened.
So we could not close on that deal until that company, the what was it, Slow and Loan or something like that, couldn't find it. I'm sure they found their money because they said no, we're not going to close without finding that money. But if they had sent it to somewhere that didn't exist.
It was lucky that they had sent it to another title company because it could have just gone anywhere.
It could have been really bad.
And that certainly has happened. It has not happened here, but it has happened lots of different places where it just gets transferred over. And there are steps that you have to take immediately if you think that has happened. And we call the FBI, and we have to prove that we did certain things in a certain order, so that we were trying to protect everyone's money. And so it's a huge deal, but the buyer and seller now have to sign something that says that they understand
Well, it was a huge deal that day. In fact,
it was
and it
huge.
goes back to what we said at the very beginning when you're hiring a title company, was I was shocked because you weren't even in the office. You were at some conference somewhere, and I'm going to hold on for a second to the side. So I know that you were at a conference when this happened, and I was shocked that you actually called me because you were aware of what was going on. That's an awesome title agent, that they knew what was going on. They were not here. You were not present for any of this. And it was like, you were on top of it. You were on top of the situation. I was so impressed with you.
Oh, well, thank you. I remember they wanted to go ahead and let the closing go and just wait to fund for a few days. Do you remember that?
Uh-huh.
And I was like, no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You were on top of that.
Crazy.
So when you're looking for that title company, you want somebody who's like that, who's Johnny on the spot.
Well,
Like,
and I'm looking out for your best interest and your buyer and sellers at best
absolutely.
interest.
So let's change gears for a second. I get all these emails all the time that say, here's your title commitment. Let's talk about what that is.
So when we get a purchase and sale agreement, then we send it over to our underwriter to do the title search for us, and we get back a title commitment that shows who's in title, who actually owns the property, and the legal description. And then on the second page, it's Schedule B1, and that shows what we need to do to close the deal. So what needs to be paid off, if there's a judgment out there, whatever the steps are that we need. So that's basically all the things that the seller has that we need to take care of. And then the third page is Schedule B2, and that are all the things that are not going to come off title. So that's going to show exceptions to title. So we had one that's easy for me to remember, is mineral rights. So there was someone that was out in an area that has a lot of mineral rights. It was over in Keystone Heights, and it actually showed on the exceptions that someone else had rights to their property to mine these. I think it was Tree Farm, actually. Mm-hmm. And luckily the buyer noticed it, because we send them out to each person, and they wanted to have those rights back. They wanted the rights themselves. So we actually found it, and it went back like 40 years. Wow. Nothing had been done on that property for years. The actual owner that had bought it in 1978 didn't even know that was on there.
I'm not surprised.
But that we were able to go back to the company that owned those rights, and they only owned 50% of those rights, and we were able to pay them at closing, and then the buyer had them.
So
Yep.
Speaking of money,
Yes.
You work with the customer, and they go, okay, we're going to pay the realtor commission, and you say, okay, here's your closing costs. They don't understand. It's like, closing costs? What do I'm the seller. You're supposed to give me money. And so I have to explain to them, no, there are some fees involved besides the fact that you're going to be prorated for your property taxes, and you're going to be prorated for your HOA fees, and there's some title fees. So tell them a little bit about, talk to us about what are some of the title fees that are pretty customary that you'll expect to see on your closing statement.
Okay, so for the title company themselves, or the real estate attorney, there should really only be a search fee and a closing fee. That's what the title company should charge. Everything else to do with the closing should be lumped into that closing fee.
Okay.
Then you're going to have, in this part of the state, in Northeast Florida, it is customary for the seller to pay for the transfer tax, which is the deed stamps. And that is 70 cents per $100.
Easy enough.
Yep. And then it's customary also for they've signed their listing agreement, so they're going to be paying for the realtor commission.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to pay for if they live in a homeowners association, we have to order an estoppel letter, and that is the responsibility of the seller to pay for that estoppel letter.
And they run all kinds of prices, don't they?
They do. We have got that. It has been capped out now. A couple of years ago, the legislature did cap it out, but $250 is very standard. Some of them are less. Mm-hmm. It's $500, I believe. If it's a rush, and I think I can go up to $1,000.
Who gets that money? That estoppel letter? That's
the homeowners association.
The HOA gets that.
Yes.
Okay.
The homeowners association gets it, right?
Okay.
And then you have proration. So your real estate taxes in Florida are paid in arrears. So you're going to pay for the seller's going to pay for his taxes from January 1st until the date they close. So that's going to show as a debit on their side and a credit on the buyer's side.
Is that customary in most states, or is that just a unique thing in Florida? Do you know?
It is scattered.
Okay.
I'm from Indianapolis, Indiana, and we also they pay theirs in arrears there too, but they pay them twice a year. So it's different in every state.
Interesting.
Which is probably a big reason that the lenders like to have all the escrows done so that they don't have to keep up with that. The municipalities can keep up with it. And then if you live in a CDD, those are paid current. So you'll probably get a credit on that end according to what time of year you close.
And I will say, for anyone out there who is buying a house, they're buying a house and they're in an area that's a CDD. If you're buying a pre-existing house, no problem. You know what your CDD fee is. But if you're buying a house and it's a brand new house, the first year you're going to say, oh, this was great. It's hardly anything because you're only paying on the land, the unimproved land. But that next year you're going to get a bill from the tax bill, and it's going to be a lot more because it's now based on improved land.
Right. That's true. And then another thing to consider is I actually had an agent call me last week, and she said that she has someone that purchased a property last year. So when they bought the property, they were on unimproved land. Mm-hmm. So now when they're going to sell this year, normally the title company will look at last year's taxes. Well, it's on unimproved. So she said, how would we handle that?
Yeah.
So we really do need to look at that when you're doing your search, and you need to have a savvy selling agent or listing agent that looks at that and says, well, wait a minute, can you see what they will be this year? Because it's not really fair for that seller to not pay what is due from January 1st until now. So we can call the property appraiser, and they can give us a breakdown, a better breakdown than what is shown on that current tax bill.
Yeah. Wow. I never even thought of that, but that
doesn't happen very often because usually if you buy a brand new property, you're
flip
not
it that
sell
quick.
it.
But
it does happen, right?
So tell us, what are some of the things that what's maybe the funniest or the craziest thing, and I'm sure there's plenty, that you have experienced or heard of that caused a delay in a closing? Besides the thing that I told you about, but what are some of the craziest things you've heard of that's caused a delay?
Well, we just had one just last week because they didn't have the CO. So they couldn't close.
And tell us what a CO is?
That means certificate of occupancy. So that means that it has been inspected, and it was a new house. Mm-hmm. And it was one that was bought, it was a friend of, an agent of ours that bought a piece of property and then built several on it.
Okay.
And he just wasn't finished with it, but he had, broken it down and had different surveys for each one. And he thought he was going to be able to close a couple weeks ago, and then could not.
He didn't have a certificate.
Right.
Oh, wow.
Right.
So little things happen.
Yeah.
They happen.
You never know what might happen. Or I had one where the wife went into labor.
Oh, gosh.
And so you're kind
of the closing.
You're under a little bit of duress when you're in labor. So that could hold it back.
Yeah,
but,
that could.
There's a few things
that could. I had one that was closing, and on their way to the closing, they were in a car accident.
Oh, gosh.
Fortunately, nobody was hurt, but it only postponed it for a couple of hours. But it was still, and she was pregnant. It was like, okay, wait, we're going to the doctor. We're going to check everything out. We'll come back this afternoon.
Right.
So
right. And I had another one where the couple they were going through foreclosure, and they'd packed up their whole house, and they had packed away everything, including their ID. They had no identification at all, and you have to have some form of government photo ID to close, unless we personally know them. So we went back and forth for probably an hour, and we finally figured out that they had attorneys that they knew that had done some things for them. So I drove them to that attorney's office, and the attorney notarized the documents because they knew them and they could, that we had for our closing. Then I drove them back to the closing table and signed the rest of the stuff.
Oh my gosh.
So it was just a small delay too, but
things happen.
Absolutely.
It's like, so don't forget.
We have to think outside the box. How can we get this done?
How can we get it done? That's where we're problem solvers.
Yes.
That's right. See, people don't see. Well, they saw that part of the icky stuff behind the scenes, but a lot of times things like that, messy things happen that the buyer and the seller, they don't see. All they see is this beautiful, smooth transaction. They don't see all the hustle we're doing behind the scenes. That's
we
great.
only want them to see this.
That's exactly right. We don't want them to see the icky stuff. So, is there anything that I haven't asked you that I should be asking you here?
I don't think so. I think you got me.
I got you.
Yeah.
Good. That's great. That's great. Well, we are really out of time with Lisa here. It's been great, and I want them to know, how can someone reach you if they have more questions or want to know more about Golden Dog Title or you or whatever?
You can always reach me on my cell at 904-476-1966. I'll answer that pretty much 24/7. Yeah. We can also go to our website, www.goldendogtitle.com.
That's awesome. So there you have it, everyone. Lisa Andrews with Golden Dog Title and Trust. You have been listening to Real Estate Talk, and we are your real estate podcast channel. See you next week.